Good morning, Southern California, AM 1220 KHTS. This is the Business Hour presented by American Family Funding and Fred Arnold. And I'm joined by Jake Young. Jake Young is a mortgage professional with American Family Funding. Jake's a lifelong resident of the Santa Clarita Valley. Went to Hart High School.
Yeah.
Yep, met his beautiful wife, Vanessa. Have kids in here in the Santa Clarita Valley, kind of the American dream. Right?
Well, thanks for having me back, Fred. I always love being on your show. So
absolutely. And Jake knows what he's doing when it comes to home loans. And Jake, I want to talk about getting pre-approved for a home loan, how important that is, and the seriousness of it. But before we do, what's the difference between getting pre-approved and getting pre-qualified?
So that's a great question, Fred. Oftentimes when I meet with somebody who's interested in buying a home or perhaps being a move-up buyer here in Santa Clarita, they'll talk to me and say, okay, I need to get pre-qualified. And getting pre-qualified and pre-approved are a little bit different. So pre-qualified may mean that you have a conversation with a loan professional, a mortgage professional, and they'll ask you questions about your income, your assets, perhaps where your down payment's coming from if you're buying a home. They may even do a credit check. But yet, none of your important income or asset or your documentation that an underwriter is going to want to review has been reviewed. It's just a preliminary conversation, if you will. But oftentimes, it isn't looked at by an underwriter for the bank to fully vet you, if you will.
Yeah. Versus being pre-approved.
So pre-approved is the next step. And that's, if you want to be a strong buyer, you need to get pre-approved. You need to talk to your loan professional and make sure that all of your paperwork's been reviewed up front, that there's nothing that's going to hinder your deal or make it go sideways at the last hour, if you will. So you want to make sure you're working with somebody who's going to get you fully pre-approved. And in our world, that would be getting all of the paperwork necessary that the loan officer is going to need so that the underwriter can give you a full approval up front.
So let's talk about the main components of pre-approval, the credit.
Right. So when you're looking to buy a house, obviously one of the first things that's going to be done is a credit check. And the credit score is vital. It helps dictate what your interest rate is going to be.
What you're going to pay.
Having a credit check is all of it, or a big part of it. And so if I was given advice to prospective home buyers out there is you're going to want to perhaps know what your credit score or what's on your credit report perhaps before you even visit your loan officer. There are ways where you can get a free copy of your credit report. I would recommend going to www.annualcreditreport.com. Now, the federal government allows consumers to check their credit once a year at no cost. You don't have to enroll for any program. It will not tell you, that credit report won't tell you what your FICO scores are, but it will tell you exactly what's on your credit report. If there's any liens, if there's any bad things that you may not know about, it's important to check your credit ahead of time so at least you're prepared.
The biggest thing comes up most of the time is with medical collection, so make sure you take a peek at that so it doesn't drag your score down.
Yes, that or perhaps a tax lien on a jet ski that you sold or something that you may not know about is dragging.
We've run across all these crazy things before. A boat you owned 10 years ago and there was a $50 tax that was never paid and it becomes a lien.
Exactly.
Let's talk about income.
So when you're going to get fully approved, which we recommend, you're going to need to provide your income and your asset documentation. And the key here, Fred, is unlike in the past when you could do what they called stated loans, where you may not have had to provide all that paperwork. Like most things in life, things change. And so now, if you're a bank, if you're loaning money, you're going to want to see the borrower's ability to repay that loan. Of course, we do not want to put you in a loan that you won't be able to repay. And so that is all dictated by your income. And so some of the paperwork that you're going to be asked for are your recent paycheck stubs. They're going to want about 30 days worth of your paycheck stubs. They're also going to want your W-2s and your 1099s for the last 2 years. You more than likely will be asked to provide 2 years of your tax returns.
Why is that?
Well, so the tax returns a lot of times will have more information than just your paycheck stubs and your W-2s will. So let me give you an example. Something on your tax return, maybe if you work for, let's say if you're in law enforcement or you have a job where you write off business expenses, that won't be notated on your paycheck stub, but it will be notated on your tax return. And there are times where the underwriter is going to want to see that because it could actually reduce the income that can be used.
So, affect your ability to repay.
Yeah, so other things that might be important on the tax return, let's say if you have a side business, if you have a second business.
Yeah, self-employed borrowers with a corporation.
Right. So all of these things, your loan officer needs to get a clear picture of your profile of you, and to help guide you in the best direction, they need to see all of the documentation to see what's the best way to guide you.
Let's talk about assets. Okay. Down payment.
So
and reserves.
Yes, yeah. So obviously, when you go to buy a home, a big thing that they're going to look for is where's the down payment coming from. And generally speaking, the bank will ask you for 2 months of your asset accounts, your checking, your savings account. They'll ask for 2 months of that. And so what they're looking for is if you have money for a down payment, is that money seasoned? And so that's why if you have a large deposit, let's say within the last 2 months, when the loan officer, the underwriter goes to look at your bank statement and there's a large deposit, they're going to want to know where that money came from. Was it a loan? Did you take a credit card advancement?
Right. They want to make sure you're not borrowing money to borrow money.
Right.
Or if they are, they got to account for it to make sure you qualify.
Exactly. So it's vital that the loan officer up front checks the last 2 months of your bank statement. If there are any large deposits, they need to be sourced, they need to be talked about, disclosed, and then we can help guide you on the best way to handle that.
Other documents that might be needed, for example, divorce papers, trust, 401k income or loan. Yeah,
so your bread and butter is going to be your income and your asset documentation. But you're exactly right, Fred. When you're buying a house, there are supplemental things you have to provide. If you've gone through a divorce, the bank is going to ask you for a copy of your divorce decree. They're going to want to see, do you owe alimony or child support, or perhaps you receive alimony or child support. Those things can affect a loan. Other things you might need is, let's say if you're gonna, if you receive trust income from a trust of a family member, they're gonna want to see that documentation to source or prove the income. And so a trust may be an example is one of them. Other documentation you have to provide, you may have to provide if you receive, let's say, retirement income.
That's
and
right.
if you receive Social Security, or if you receive income from, let's say, an IRA, they're going to want to see the paperwork for the distributions of that IRA, the 1099s, and the bank is going to want to see that income, that distribution from a retirement account, will at least be ongoing for the next 3 years. So there are a few other things that will be needed, just besides income and asset stuff, but IRA distributions, 401k paperwork, if you took out a 401k loan.
They really want to see the whole picture.
Exactly.
And there's one thing I want to emphasize, and that is you want to make sure that you disclose everything to the loan officer so he can figure out how to best structure the loan.
Yes. Yeah, it's vital to give everything up front to your loan officer, make it a crystal clear picture of your financial situation, down payment, money, income, assets, everything about your credit profile, everything you can, so that the loan officer can help be an advocate, give you the best advice they can, and help guide you to make it as painless as possible to get a home loan.
Yeah. I love that. Jake, those who want to get a hold of you?
Yeah, I'm locally here in Santa Clarita. My direct number is area code 661-505-4303. Again, 661-505-4303.
Or Jake at AFFloans.com.
Yep.
Jake, thanks for coming in.
Thank you, Fred.
Absolutely.
Right.
He's a master. He knows it. Over a decade of experience, and he'll help you get into that house of your dreams. Hope you enjoyed this edition of the Southern California Business Spotlight. Host Fred Arnold on AM 1220 KHTS.